Welcome to Star Wars Characters Explained. In today's episode, we're going to go on an in-depth journey, discovering fully the story of the tortured young Sith turned Jedi, Visas Marr. As always, if you go on to enjoy the video, perhaps consider subscribing and joining me for a lot more in-depth stories like this one. Don't forget to hit the bell next to the subscribe button too, so you're notified when I release new content. Visas Marr was presumably born in 3976 BBY and was raised on the Miraluka colony of Katarr. Visas, as a Miraluka just like the rest, was highly force sensitive and was physically blind. Instead, she saw the galaxy through foresight, a skill innately mastered at birth, allowing her to see how the force was connected to the organic nature of the galaxy. Where she could see the force alignment of living things, non-organic objects were seen to be somewhat translucent. Visas' life was peaceful on Katarr, and despite the ongoing chaos of the galaxy, the Mandalorian Wars and the Jedi Civil War, Katarr was relatively unscathed. However, at the back end of the Jedi Civil War, the Jedi that had survived were beginning to be struck one by a menacing force that they could not see. In 3952 BBY, the Jedi Master Atris had created a secret conclave, so that the Jedi could try and figure out who or what was causing Jedi to disappear. They chose Katarr to host the conclave, due to its intensified connection to the Force, and they hoped that being among the Miraluka and the planet's intensified connection would give them more clarity. However, Atris leaked out the location of the Enclave, secretly intending to use the remaining Jedi as bait, to lure whatever was attacking them out of hiding. The mysterious being known as Darth Nihilus could feel the presence of the grouped up Jedi and jumped out of hyperspace over Katarr in an almost destroyed derelict Centurion-class battlecruiser. Atris, who wasn't present at the Conclave, had completely underestimated what and who this being was, and had unintentionally doomed not only the Jedi, but the whole planet too. Nihilus was a wound in the Force, essentially a black hole, hell-bent on consuming the Force itself. He simply stood on the bridge of his ship, staring down at the planet, and spoke. Every single living thing connected to the Force was killed, wiping out the Jedi Order and destroying the planet itself. However, Visas was not killed, and as she stood on the planet while Nihilus consumed it, her deep connection to the planet's force energies was severed, leaving her close to death and rendering her unconscious. Nihilus walked upon the barren surface of Katarr to marvel at his work, and to retrieve one last being that he had kept alive for himself. He took the damaged girl to his ship, the Ravager, and placed her in the medbay. Visas awoke aboard Nihilus' ship, her wounds healed by the Dark Lord, still unable to truly comprehend what had happened and why he had done this. She travelled to the bridge of the ship to question him as to why she, and only she, had been spared. Visas was emotionally and spiritually fractured, and when she stepped upon the bridge, she was overwhelmed by Nihilus' dark aura. She asked the imposing figure why he spared her, and instead of answering, she allowed him to take hold, and the Dark Lord forced a vision into her mind. She saw the galaxy in a way that she couldn't see it before. People, beings, weak and unable to feel the Force, leaving trails of destruction and chaos that they just couldn't understand. The vision that Nihilus had forced into her mind had somehow damaged the foresight that she had originally used to perceive the Force and its connection to life. And now, thanks to Nihilus, she saw the galaxy for what it was. Simple, crude, pointless matter, disconnected from the very thing that she believed all life revolved around. She became convinced that Nihilus was feeding upon this ugliness, feeding upon the chaos that it wrought, and leaving order and silence in his wake. Despite wanting to die herself due to the immense pain of what had happened, she became determined to help Nihilus kill life as she now saw it. She took off her veil, revealing her now blackened out eye sockets. The Dark Lord had carved out the flesh that covered her eyes, leaving nothing but gaping, bloody black holes. Visas now resembled Nihilus in a way, and her people could finally see. This is why Nihilus spared her life. Perhaps one last shred of humanity played a part, but it was because he wanted her, the last survivor of a people that saw nothing but the Force, to see a galaxy suffering without it. Visas pledged herself to his invitation and his dark teachings, becoming his apprentice. She took residence in a meditation chamber aboard the Ravager, and for around a year she performed as his shadow hand, essentially his second in command in hunting down surviving members of the Jedi Order. Despite serving him as his apprentice, Nihilus saw Visas as more of a tool than a student, and tortured and hurt her to ensure his superiority and to fuel her anger and hatred. In 3951 BBY, around a year after her pledge to Nihilus, Visas could feel disturbance in the Force, a being that was unique. This being was like a faint echo, rippling through the Force itself, but at the same time remaining almost silent. She discussed this with Nihilus, who also felt the echo, but for some reason he couldn't trace it. Although somewhat damaged, he tasked Visas to use her foresight to follow these echoes to the source and bring it to him. Visas travelled the galaxy and traced the echoes scattered around space, which eventually led her to a dynamic class freighter known as the Ebon Hawk. She infiltrated the ship and incapacitated the few crew present, and meditated in the starboard dormitory, waiting for the true source of the echoes to show itself. A short while later, a young woman entered the dormitory, prompting Visas to ignite her lightsaber and engage her in a duel. After several minutes of intense dueling, the woman beat her, breaking the hilt of her lightsaber. Visas fell to the floor, injured, and was in awe of the woman's power, a power that did not stem from the Force, the very opposite of which Nihilus had showed her. Visas pledged herself to the woman, but felt as if she had nothing to offer, so Visas begged the woman to kill her, knowing that she could not return to Nihilus. But to Visas' shock, the woman refused. She then passed out, succumbing to her injuries, and woke up several days later. When she woke up, she was surprised to see that her wounds had been healed, and spent a short while in the dormitory to fully recover. The woman, who revealed herself to be Mitra Surik, questioned Visas as to her intentions. She relayed her story to Mitra about her past and her entanglement with Nihilus. Since being with Nihilus, her memory had been broken and she had forgotten kindness, and was shocked that someone who had created so many tremors in the Force could be so caring. To Visas, Mitra was an anomaly, like her former master. Somebody who was so damaged that she left tremors and echoes in the Force everywhere she went. But unlike Nihilus, her strength wasn't reliant on the Force, and instead, her strength emanated from who she was as a person. This was a contradiction to what Nihilus had showed her, and she realised that Nihilus twisted her and showed her what he wanted her to see, not the truth, with Mitra being key to that realisation. As she had with Nihilus a year prior, she became determined to protect Mitra, even if that meant her own sacrifice. She refused to divulge Nihilus's whereabouts at Mitra's behest, but she knew that the two would eventually come face to face, and she was intent on helping Mitra realise her full potential, so that she was ready to face the Lord of Hunger himself when the time came. Most of Mitra's companions came to accept Visas as part of the group. However, Mitra's closest confidant, Kreia, tried to convince her that Visas was a threat, and that all Sith, no matter what, will overthrow their masters in time. But Mitra truly felt that Visas was being honest, and refused to accept Kreia's warnings. Visas proceeded to then travel with Mitra, helping her find the lost Jedi Masters so that she could learn the truth of her past and why she was exiled from the Jedi Order. While travelling, Visas followed by Mitra's example, and truly let go of her hate and anger, returning to the light. Mitra offered to train her as a Jedi, and Visas accepted, becoming a Jedi Sentinel under Mitra's tutelage. Visas, in return, taught Mitra how to see as she used to see, using foresight, despite admitting that her own sight was damaged by Nihilus's visions. Once Mitra had found the Jedi Masters, and after Kreia's betrayal, Darth Nihilus launched an attack on Telos 4, after Kreia lured him there with the false promise of Jedi to feed upon. It was now time for Mitra to face the Lord of Hunger, and Visas demanded that she face her former master, believing that her bond with him may help win the battle. Visas, Mitra and Mandalore the Preserver boarded Nihilus' ship with the help of the Mandalorian clans, and planted explosives before heading to the bridge to face Nihilus. Just before reaching the bridge, Visas asked Mitra for a few minutes alone in the meditation chamber that she had come to accept as her former prison under Nihilus' servitude. Mitra allowed her the time, and Visas sat in the chamber, finally coming to peace with herself and the death of Katarr. As she meditated for several minutes, she admitted to herself that she lost her way, but she was now stronger as she had returned to the light and was at peace with the way Nihilus had treated her, wanting his death not out of revenge, but to save all life from his never-ending hunger. Leaving her prison forever, the three entered the bridge and came face to face with the Dark Lord himself, already taken aback by his aura alone. Nihilus tried to drain the force from Mitra, but to his shock the drain was resisted, and he was weakened, giving the group an opportunity to take him down. Visas, Mitra and Nihilus ignited their lightsabers, and Canderous raised his blaster, engaging in a vicious but intimate duel, but Nihilus was gaining the upper hand, too powerful for the trio of valiant heroes even in a weakened state. As they battled, Visas was becoming sundered by Nihilus' presence and strength, believing him to be invincible, feeling his pull back to the darkness. But Mitra, her friend and mentor, convinced her to resist it and keep fighting. Visas stopped for a brief moment and focused on the bond that she shared with her former master, suppressing it, limiting his connection to the Force for a moment, causing the Dark Lord to fall to his knees in pain. He stood enraged at Visas' betrayal, targeting his former apprentice, but this was the deciding factor in the battle, and now the Dark Lord was truly vulnerable and was struck down. Visas walked to the body of the now dead Sith Lord, peering underneath the mask to get a glimpse at the monster that had almost destroyed her. But when she saw his face, she realised that he was just a man, nothing more. And, thanks to her restored foresight, she could now see the connection between Mitra and Nihilus, the desolate planet of Malachor 5. Her bond with the Lord of Hunger had been broken, and she was now free. The group left, and the Ravager was destroyed. Visas stayed behind while Mitra travelled to Malachor 5 and defeated Kreia, ending the Dark Wars, and when she returned, Visas was tasked, along with Atton Rand, Bayodur, Mira the Disciple and Brianna, to rebuild the Jedi Order, whilst she travelled into the unknown regions to find Revan. Several months later, with the Order now rebuilding and the galaxy finally at peace from the tyranny of the Sith, Visas travelled to Katarr and walked upon its barren surface, finally able to truly see what Nihilus had done. Visas eventually died after being integral in the rebuilding of the Jedi Order, and her legacy was forever remembered as being one of the brave few who ended the threat of the Lord of Hunger, Darth Nihilus. There we have it, the complete story of Visas Marr. A lot of you have been asking for this one, and I really hope you enjoyed it. I also have similar videos in the Characters Explained series for Mitra, Kreia and Nihilus, who all featured prominently, if you'd like to learn more about them too. I love Visas Marr, she's such a complex character and one of my favourite characters in the game, and plus Kelly Hu's sombre performance was so beautiful, and I think alongside Sarah Kestelman as Kreia, she gave the best performance. Sadly, there was so much more planned for Visas that was eventually cut or not implemented that would have really broadened her unique personality. You may have noticed that I didn't include any of the restored content mod stuff, and like the Atton Rand video, I chose not to include those story arcs, such as saving Mandalore's life and her confrontation with Darth Traya, because they were not representative of her official canonical story, but either way, the mod is the best way to enjoy the game. If you enjoyed the video, I'd really appreciate it if you hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more. Also, if you'd like to help support my channel further, perhaps consider checking out my Patreon and dropping some pounds or dollars into the channel to gain access to some cool rewards. I'll see you guys in the next video, but until then, may the Force be with you, always.